Is it a sect, or if I have difficulty with my terminology, please correct me.
Okay.
But I don't know that many Orthodox Jews, and so if you could explain to me and my listeners what Lubavitch means and how you look at things differently. For example, people at Temple Israel.
Okay. About 230 years ago, a man by the name of the Baal Shem Tov, Rabbi Israel Baal Shem Tov in Russia, introduced a new insight into Judaism, into Torah, the soul of Judaism, so to speak. And that became known as the Hasidic movement, or the Hasidic philosophy. A generation or two later, the groups split up, and we had over 200 different Hasidic groups in Poland and in Hungary.
So it's mainly a European. It started in Europe.
Yes, it started in Europe, and it basically got into the soulful part of Judaism, or the mystical part of Judaism. It explored the soul of the Jew, the relationship between the soul and God, the relationship between the commandment and the commander. I mean, the inner workings of Judaism. And it became very, very popular. Almost half the Jews in Europe were Hasidic before the war.
So we're talking about World War II.
Right. And because of the war, of course, many of the groups died out. And of the groups that are alive today and doing well, Lubavitch, which is the name of a village in Russia where this movement was centered for 100 years. Lubavitch means village of love in Russian. So Lubavitcher Hasidim are very much alive and well, and are the most outgoing, forward-looking of the Hasidic groups. And because of it, Lubavitch became the outreach movement of Judaism.
Would some Hasidic people be so Orthodox that they would not speak to me as a Gentile woman?
No.
No, I mean, they would not be that Orthodox.
No, Jews don't make up additional laws. We have 613, and it's a job just keeping those right.
So, you are very Orthodox, though, Rabbi. You do have a full beard. Are you married?
Yes.
Okay. Does your wife shave her head?
No.
Okay. Is that because I always
cover the hair?
Okay, you cover the hair. But didn't in the Orthodox movement a lot of women have to shave their heads and wear wigs?
Well, you have to distinguish between the commandment, the custom, and the local or contemporary developments. Covering the hair is the commandment. You cover your hair because it's more modest. A married woman keeps her hair covered. But shaving was a European phenomenon. There wasn't much else you could do. Wigs were not really available. The ones that were available you didn't want to wear. So shaving became something women in Europe did. But that's not the custom or the commandment. The commandment is to cover the hair.
To cover your hair. Could you tell me what the Lubavitch House is in St. Paul, please?
Okay, Lubavitch House is the local center for Lubavitch teachings and outreach programs. We initially bought it for weekend programs, for Shabbos programs, where people would come and spend the traditional Shabbos and observe all the laws of Shabbos and so on. Eventually, it became the seat of the Beis Chana School, which is a crash course on Judaism for college-age women who maybe weren't taught when they were young, or got only a minimal education when they were young and want to do a little catch-up work and prepare for marriage and for Jewish life and so on, which has been attracting women from all over the world for the last 20 years.
If you were a Gentile and wanted to learn more about Judaism, would you be able to take the course?
We have courses for Gentiles, for non-Jews, but Beis Chana is Judaism, and what we encourage non-Jews to study is the parts of Torah that apply to the non-Jew.
How do you feel about people changing and becoming Jewish? Do you believe that that's possible?
Of course. It's always been possible.
It's always been possible, so that is fine.
What we say is there are 7 commandments that God gave at Sinai through Moses to the rest of the world. 613 commandments were addressed to the Jewish people who were standing there at the foot of the mountain. But there were 7 commandments addressed to the whole world. And I think this is crucial to even what's going on today in the world.
Well, that's, of course, what we are going to get to. Now, are those, you had 7 commandments? I thought we had 10 commandments.
10 commandments is part of Judaism. The first commandment...
They came from Moses, so we both, your commandments are my commandments?
Well, but there are commandments addressed to the children of Israel. That's specifically Jewish. And then there are commandments addressed to the whole world.
So you don't have thou shalt not kill or commit adultery and steal and all of those?
Yes, those are common to all.
So we both have those?
Yeah.
But you just have some extra ones?
Right.
Okay. How large is the Lubavitch movement in the Twin Cities compared to the conservative movement and the temple and the my mind has escaped me, the reform movement?
Yeah.
Can you give me some numbers?
I can't. It's hard to say how big a philosophy is. If you have membership, and you know how many members you have. But when you're a philosophy and an ideal, it's hard to know how many people share that philosophy or how many people are inspired by it. So we can only say that we're very outgoing or open with our teachings, and we've affected and influenced the thinking of probably most Jews.
Now, something instinctively told me not to shake your hand. And what if I had tried to shake your hand? What would you have done? Said no, thank you?
Yeah, I would have made up some silly excuse.
But you won't. Is there a commandment that you may not touch a Gentile woman?
Oh, no. This is what the book is about. Doesn't anyone blush anymore?
Okay.
It's about modesty and the respect that the genders have to have for each other. So it's a men and women thing, not a Jew, non-Jew thing. Okay,
well, we will get into your book. We're going to have you for a couple of hours. And, of course, one of the things that we want to do, Rabbi, is spend a great deal of time in what is happening in the Middle East and the very interesting alignment that the United States and Israel have made. And I think what is most interesting is that Israel, up to this time, has not retaliated for the missiles coming into their country. So we are joined by Rabbi Manis Friedman, and Rabbi Friedman and Barbara Carlson will return after some messages.
The forecast for the Twin Cities from KSTP, partly sunny today, high about 10 above. Increasing cloudiness tonight.
An Orthodox Jew, and is here to talk about a variety of subjects, but mainly he is here to discuss what is happening in the Middle East. This, of course, is a talk call-in show. I'm going to give you my number. It is 646-TALK. Of course, that is 646-8255. The number long distance is 1-800-962-0792. And you may call in with your comments. I will tell you that I still am very, very much immersed in this war. I am still finding it extremely difficult to talk about other subjects, go places that I am not close to a TV set. I wake up in the middle of the night and wonder what is going on. I'm aware of the 9-hour difference between the United States and what is happening in the Middle East. It's just still all-consuming for me. And I'm wondering if a lot of other people are not getting back to their lives, though, their regular way of doing things. Most of the stations have gone back to their regular programming, and they will break in if there's a press conference or something is occurring. And so maybe this is like a lot of wars. We are going back to the way things were, or maybe it's a denial system that we have that we can pretend to go along. But never, Rabbi, have I been, and I think everyone will agree, that we are right in the middle of this war. That when Tel Aviv is being bombed, we are there via satellite. And how does it feel for someone that I'm sure has a lot of friends and family in Israel watching that occur?
Well, the miracle of what's going on in Israel is absolutely awesome. We read in the Torah, we read a weekly portion of the Torah, of the 5 books of Moses. And
now that happens in conservative and reform too. Yeah. So this is across the board, okay.
And we happen to be reading, and by no coincidence, we happen to be reading the chapter or the portion on the Exodus from Egypt with the miracles that accompanied that. And
is that the Red Sea?
Yeah.
Opening? Okay. Right. I mean, I am not, I'm asking you these questions. I am not a student of religion. I fear that what I learned happened many, many years ago as a Catholic. So I recall certain things.
So reading the headlines in the newspapers about the miracles going on in Israel and then reading the Torah portion is like...
well, you're really there.
Yeah, it's a reflection of... So those miracles... are part of a prediction that I think we should all be very excited about. Jews have always been blessed with great leaders. I mean, beginning with Moses and Rabbi Akiva and the Baal Shem Tov and so on. And we've always had the kind of leadership that in a time of danger, in a time of need, we were able to get some direction, some guidance, some insight as to what's going on and how we're supposed to respond or react. The Lubavitcher movement is headed by the Lubavitcher Rebbe, the rabbi of rabbis. Who you may
So the
have
Rebbe is, I've heard of Rebbe's, and then their wives are called
Rebbe'S.
Rebbe'S, okay.
Yeah, but there are rabbis and there's a Rebbe. A rabbi is a man who studied his Jewish law and passed a test, and now if you have any questions on Jewish law, you can ask him.
Okay.
A Rebbe is an inspired leader. And
So what is happening now, though? I mean, are you coming to tell me in a sort of a roundabout way that we're dealing with the prophecy?
yeah, I was just
We're
getting to
talking
that.
about prophecies, and are you saying that this is Armageddon? I mean, is this the beginning of the end?
Well, the beginning of life as it should be. Let me lead up to this. The Rebbe has been saying for the last 2 months that these events are going to be miraculous and wonderful events for the world. And particularly with Israel, when 2 months ago, Israel started talking about handing out gas masks and stockpiling food, people in Israel turned to the Rebbe for advice, because in the last 40 years, his advice has been incredible.
Now, you only have one Rebbe over there?
One Rebbe, yes.
And he's Orthodox.
He is the Rebbe, the rabbi of rabbis.
The head honcho
Right.
top,
Right.
does he have a long gray beard?
Mine is longer.
Yours is longer, okay. But he's old, must be older than you are, because
Yes.
he must be how old is the Rebbe?
He is 88 years old.
Okay, so he's been around for a long time.
Right. And his advice on Israel or to Israel has been incredible.
What has he said?
Before the Six-Day War, the Rebbe said it's going to be a wonderful, miraculous event. Before anyone knew there was going to be a Yom Kippur War, the Rebbe was upset. He was nervous. He was telling people to do extra mitzvahs. We didn't know why until the war broke out. And people
A
in
mitzvah
Israel...
is a good deed.
A commandment.
Okay.
Yeah. So people in Israel turned to the Rebbe for guidance. And when they turned to the Rebbe about this gas mask business and about the stockpiling of foods, the Rebbe said not to. There won't be a need. And of course, the Rebbe's advice
come
turns
on,
out
Rabbi.
to be...
Up to this point.
Right.
I mean, but is the Rabbi, so he really can see into the future?
Well, either he has access to information that the average person doesn't have, because people in Israel, even in very high places in Israel, come to him for advice on military things, on political things, on social things. So it could be that the Rebbe has access to information that we don't have. But
So
the
that
Rebbe,
would mean that the Rebbe would have a direct line to God.
well,
or maybe
that's what an
God...
inspired, that's what an
Okay.
inspired leader is. That when the people need to know something, God makes it known through the Moses or through the leader of the generation and so on.
Okay.
So the
So
Rebbe has been saying-
he's saying that you don't need gas masks. I mean, that a lot of it... Now, he's just saying that the Orthodox people don't need gas masks?
No,
I mean,
that there isn't going to be any gas attacks. That's what it means. So that you won't need the gas masks.
son of a gun. I mean, so people shouldn't be worried about those missiles coming in.
Well, so for 2 months, people were very calm and very confident that there wasn't going to be any problem and that they weren't going to need the gas masks. Of course, you got to be prudent about it, and the gas masks were available just in case. Now, when was it, last Thursday night, when suddenly on the news we heard that there were rockets landing in Tel Aviv, everybody panicked, of course.
Well, trust me, if I had been in Tel Aviv, I would have panicked too.
Right, right.
I mean, so the Rebbe's saying, forget about the sealed rooms, forget about the gas masks, just go about your business?
Well, you got to go about your business in consideration of the fact that there are rockets falling. But the miracle of it, when we later found out that 4 rockets had landed in Tel Aviv and no one was even seriously hurt. I mean, the miracle of this is just incredible. And people in Israel are walking around on a cloud because of these miracles. And the whole picture, let me give you this scenario
we don't have
here.
time for the entire picture because we have John McDougall in the news, Rabbi. So what we're going to have to do is take a break. We do have some callers, which we will get to. And I am fascinated by this miracle. I do like miracles. And so we will come back and talk about them after my very own miracle, because I'm crazy about him. John McDougall in the news.
Well, this is also very interesting to us all. We're all, I guess, glued to our televisions and our radios and wanting new news all the time about what is happening. Last night I saw something that to me seemed rather frightening, and this was 60 Minutes. I don't know if either of you watched the show.
No, I was not able to watch it. Did you watch it, Rabbi?
No, I didn't either.
He didn't either?
No.
Okay, well, anyway, it was just, it concerned...
They had a henchman, didn't they? A bodyguard of Hussein?
Well, that was one of them, but I think that, well, the other things that were really quite interesting were the weapons salesman.
The arms dealer.
And well, let's see, there was Carl Sagan, and there was an authority on what would happen if Hussein carried out something that they say he can do, and that is, they claim that a man from Jordan claims that they have all of their wells mined. And
all the Jordanian wells mined?
No, not the Jordanians, the Kuwait mine.
Okay.
And they're to blow up and set them afire. There's some 350. Sagan says it'll be like it'll be a huge cloud that'll just affect all of the world, and we'll have, as we did back in the 1800s, a year without summer. And the experts that evidently our government listened to said, well, no, it'll just be contained in that area, the Middle East. And that plus the fact that this arms salesman says it's just a horrendous war. We shouldn't have gotten into it. It's a dirty war.
Helen, do you have
garbage? What?
Okay. Do you have a question for the rabbi too?
I would like to know how the rabbi
feels.
Yes, he's right there in the midst of it all.
Okay. Well, we'll ask him. Helen, thanks very much. I'm sorry I missed that show of everything that I wanted to watch. I would have liked 60 Minutes last night, but I don't know how to work my machine that can run things when you're not in your home. Rabbi, what do you feel about this? Is this part of that great? Is this a third world war? Is this a war to end all wars? What are we looking at in the Middle East?
Well, a war to end all wars would be very nice. There's an interesting and powerful statement in the Medrash, which was written 2,000 years ago.
You have to tell us what the Medrash is.
It was written 2,000 years ago by the same scholars and sages who wrote the Talmud, which is the vast body of Jewish law. In it, they write as follows. They say the year in which Mashiach comes, the Messiah comes, all the nations of the world will be at war with each other. And the king of Persia, the Persian king, will be at war with an Arab king. The Arab king will go to the superpowers for advice. The Persian king will come back and upset the whole world.
Who's the Persian king now?
Well, the king of the Persian Gulf right now is Hussein.
It's Hussein, okay.
And the whole world will panic, it says, not knowing what to do. And Israel will panic. And they will say, where should we go? Where should we go? And so the sages say that God promises that all of this is being done only because the time of the redemption has come. So all of these events are all leading up to the coming of Mashiach, and people have been believing and expecting the coming of Mashiach for almost 2,000 years now. And we always thought that this is going to be some kind of a miraculous event that will defy all the laws of nature. For example, how is everybody going to know all over the world that Mashiach has arrived? I mean, he'll arrive somewhere. How will the rest of the world know? Our grandparents, who believed in the coming of Mashiach, believed that it would be a miracle, and miraculously everyone would know. Well, now we see that you don't need miracles. Look at how everyone is glued to the television set, and how all the attention of the entire world is on what is happening in the Middle East. So if Mashiach comes out of this whole thing, you won't need a miracle to get people to know about it. Everyone is listening.
Well, you could say that the television is the miracle or the communications network that is...
Right. And within that, there's a little bit of a miracle that CNN was able to get the kind of coverage that it did get with permission from Iraq, and who knows why they gave permission, whatever. So that's one of the miracles that our attention is riveted there.
Okay, since I don't know a whole lot about the Messiah. In fact, I know nothing about the Messiah except the Jews say the Messiah is coming. I mean, is he going to come as a baby, as an adult?
As an adult. A Jewish leader, a hard-working Jewish leader who is a descendant of King David, who will inspire the world, inspire the Jewish people to a greater observance of all the commandments and so on, will eventually also inspire the whole world with his leadership, with his wisdom in a time of need. So it makes sense that this...
It's not Schneerson.
I wouldn't be too particular. I don't care who it is. Whoever can accomplish this, whoever can get the attention of the world and have the wisdom to solve the world's problems and bring peace to the world is Mashiach.
So it doesn't, I mean, George Bush will not do. It must be someone that is a descendant
of King David.
Of King David.
Right.
So it must be a Jew. And are those of us that are Gentiles going to recognize this? And what happens to Jesus in this whole? Since I don't understand the Torah. I mean, you've got to tell me what happens to Christians and Muslims and all other religions
okay, now,
when the Messiah comes.
Now we're getting to some real issues here. If this war ends...
On a simplistic basis,
yeah,
Rabbi.
If this war ends either with a victory for the United States, the total defeat of Hussein, partial defeat of Hussein, Hussein decides to pull out of Iraq, however this war resolves itself, there is a bigger issue, there's a bigger question, and it's an ideological one. It's a question of right and wrong. It's a question of morality. As long as we have mutually exclusive moralities, when the Muslim is saying that unless you're Muslim, you're not good, when the Christian is saying unless you're Christian, you're not good.
But I don't think they're saying that you're not good.
Well, the Muslims are certainly saying it.
Are they saying that you're not a good person now?
Well, they say you're the evil incarnate. You're, they hate America because America is evil.
You think they hate America because they're primarily Christians?
No, because they're secular.
Okay, so if you don't, you're saying that the Muslims say if you are not Muslim, then you do not. Well, the Jews say that too, don't you? I mean, if you're not Jewish, you're not one of the chosen?
No. The Jew says, and this has always been the case, that there are 613 commandments for the Jewish people, and there are 7 commandments for the non-Jewish. But there's no purpose or reason for the non-Jew to want to be Jewish when God already has commandments and already has a purpose for you, and you can serve him and be righteous and inherit the world to come without being Jewish.
Steve.
Good morning to you, Barbara, and good morning to your guest. And Barbara, please allow me to ask your guest some questions. Give him a chance to respond and perhaps me to ask some additional questions, if you would. Rabbi, with all due respect to you, I'm troubled by things you're saying. You go on babbling about prophecies and what have you, and I'll tell you exactly what I call it that. The secular state of Israel has taken the right approach, and that's basically put your faith in the sword and then put your sword in the enemy. 6 million Jews were butchered by Hitler. Much of it was due to the fact that people like yourself kept, keep the faith, pray, and if this is our destiny, nothing can stop it.
Stephen, let me tell you something. If you want to ask questions on that show, just a minute, because remember, I have the button to cut you off. If you want to ask questions, that's fine. But I don't want you to be insulting to my guests. So if you have an honest question without being insulting, Stephen, you certainly may ask it.
Point blank, are you going to you're going to hope that the faith of Israel depends on your faith in God? God has let people down many, many times before. Is this what you want to do, sir?
Well, obviously, we're coming from very different perspectives. God never lets anyone down because God is the driver, and as long as he's in the driver's seat, the world continues. Without him, the world doesn't exist.
Just a minute, Stephen.
Just a second. Everyone is required by Torah law to do whatever is necessary to protect life and to protect lives. And Israel, of course, is doing that. That's an absolute requirement. There is no statement anywhere in Judaism that says that because you believe in God, you don't have to be responsible. So that's out of the question. The point is, in addition to being responsible, which we are, in addition to the fact that, like we were saying before, Israel is distributing gas masks, we also have to recognize the hand of God in all these events. When you see that, as we're reading in the Torah this week, God is doing our fighting for us, that the rockets are landing in places where they do almost no damage at all, is absolutely miraculous. And to deny that, as I think Ben Gurion once said, any Jew who doesn't believe in miracles is simply out of touch with reality.
Okay, just a second,
because
sir.
our reality has been miraculous. Our existence is miraculous.
The fact that these rockets are not landing on targets, I'm very grateful for that, has nothing to do with God, sir. It's simply because his technology is very primitive. For that, we can be thankful. If it were more advanced, they would be landing. And if they don't land from now on, it's thanks to the Patriot missiles. What I'm saying, sir, is you can pray to God.
Steve, I think you're being a little too simplistic. The missiles are landing in Tel Aviv. They're obviously not totally defective, and yet they're landing between houses, they're landing between gas lines, it is an absolute miracle. If you don't recognize it, you're kidding yourself.
Holocaust also because God willed it so. Is this what you're trying to tell us? And I am
He's
saying
going
a
back.
wicked
Stephen
man
always
willed
wants to
it
go back to the Holocaust and because he is European. What about the Holocaust? Steve, thanks for the question. I mean, how can you say if God's hand is in this? How do you answer the Holocaust for Stephen, for people?
I can't answer it. I can't explain it, but there's no question that people say, how can you believe in God after a Holocaust? You can ask the same question in reverse. How can you not believe in God after a Holocaust?
Michael, good morning.
Good morning. I am a Christian, and I am totally fascinated about Judaism, and I've become so in the last few months just because of some sermons that we've had at church. And yesterday we had a very interesting study on the rebuilding of the temple. And I'm wondering if you could just expand upon it some more. We were told that there are some very crucial Muslim, or the third, I believe it's the third most sacred place for the Muslim.
Dome on the Rock, isn't it?
Correct. Is in the spot where the temple is to be rebuilt. And that is in Jerusalem, and we have not really had any fighting in Jerusalem. I was just wondering if you could comment on that a little bit. I'll hang up.
Okay, thanks, Michael. Is it called the Dome of the Rock? I think it's called the Dome of the Rock, and it seems, as I recall, that is right on top of where the temple is. And if you're going to have this whole new whatever is going to happen, you have to rebuild the temple. Rabbi, is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
How can you rebuild the temple if you've got the Dome of the Rock on top of it?
Well, the rebuilding of the temple represents a time when there will be world peace. And world peace means that there is a universal, a collective morality that all of us share in common. And that, as far as I can see, can only happen when we all get together in the one thing that we all consider sacred, which is the revelation at Sinai, the giving of the Torah.
So
it is sacred to all.
So you're
all
saying
religions.
that the Muslims
so if we
will understand the importance of that,
right.
and the temple will be erected.
Right, and that they will actually assist in the construction of the temple.
If you must believe this. Okay, Don, good morning. You're on the air. Dora, I'm sorry, I don't have my glasses on, so if you ever had a time when you couldn't see without glasses and you squint your fingers together, I'm sorry, I mispronounced your name. Dory?
Yes, I have a kind of a rebuttal to Steve, and
he does make us think, doesn't he? And
this is for the rabbi, and this is the way I feel, and I'm not Jewish. And I feel that this war is not the will of God. I feel that this war is the will of man. And I resent Steve saying, well, you didn't do anything when the Jews were slaughtered in Germany and all this and that. That wasn't God's doing either. That wasn't the will of a man.
A madman.
A madman. And it's just... I've read a lot about Auschwitz and all the prison camps. I had 4 brothers in the Second World War, and my husband is a veteran. And I resent anybody saying that this war or any war was the will of God. Because I don't believe it, and I'd like to hear the rabbi comment.
Okay, thanks for the question, Dorian. What do you think, Rabbi?
Yeah, Dory. Obviously, God gives us freedom of choice to be moral or to be immoral. Wars are started usually by immoral people. So there's no question that that's not the will of God. But the outcome of the war, the results of a war, the results of our own immoral choices are always in God's hands. So just because someone wants to start a war doesn't mean that God has to provide them with victims. And we see, again, the good news. I don't know why people always have to be fascinated with the evil. The good news and the miraculous events in Israel that are really biblical in proportion. That just because Hussein wants to send rockets doesn't mean
he has to kill people.
That God has to provide victims.
This is Barbara Carlson with Rabbi Manis Friedman, and we will be back after these messages.
The forecast for the Twin Cities from KS.
Rabbi Friedman is with the Lubavitch House in St. Paul, which is the Orthodox. Has been prophesized, and that the fact that the missiles did not kill anybody up to this point is truly a miracle. Is that miracle going to continue? I mean, is this something that, can you have a miracle one day and then disaster befall you the next?
Well, everything is possible. But what we should expect is continued miracles and increased miracles. This whole thing has a background to it, which is fascinating. This place, Iraq, was in biblical times called Babylon. Now, the Babylonians were the ones who destroyed the first temple in Jerusalem.
Okay.
For some reason, there seems to be some kind of a mystical competition between Iraq and Jerusalem, going back 2,000 years now. So it's
not unusual that there should be this battle now.
It's almost like we're coming full circle to settle some accounts.
How soon is this the time of redemption and this war, which some people are calling the Third World War, when is this going to end? Can you prophesize that?
No, but it looks like it's not going to take very long.
Well, then what happens? Is it the end of the world?
No, it's the beginning of a real world. It's the beginning of a world where people can actually live and serve God without distraction and without
Sounds
competition.
Pretty good. Sounds like it might be a nice place to be. Julie, good morning. You're on the air.
Well, first of all, I'd just like to say I really heard about the book, and I've really heard good things about it. And my question was, you were talking about the will of God. And, I mean, in the New Testament, it's also brought up, like Judas, the story of Judas and Jesus. I mean, he betrayed Jesus, yet that was still in the will of God. Even though it was like God used people's evil hearts, and all through the Old Testament, God uses people's own evil desires to carry out his will anyway. Can you comment on that? I mean, how this relates to the war?
Do you read the New Testament as well as the Old Testament?
No, I don't, so I can't comment on that.
But the Old Testament, the same thing?
I can say that,
Thanks,
obviously, if good things are going to result from this war in the Middle East, God is using Hussein's evil plans or evil designs to bring about the coming of a Mashiach, and I think, as
does
Bush
it have
said,
to be that incredible, like the coming of the Messiah out of this? I mean, or can it be just sort of a middle-level miracle?
Well, I wouldn't like to settle for anything less.
Well, you just want it all, Rabbi. I can tell. Paul, good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning, Barbara. Good morning, Rabbi.
Good morning.
As a Catholic, I'm hoping you can answer a question for me regarding the Muslims. I'm not real familiar with it, but how can, in the name of Allah, I would assume Allah and God and everybody's God is the same, how can they declare a holy war and go out and kill people in the name of God?
Yeah.
I appreciate that question, and we are going to have a Muslim on the show hopefully sometime this week to explain from that perspective and what is happening, but I'd like to listen to yours, Rabbi. Thanks, Paul.
Well, this whole thing with religions becoming a problem in themselves rather than a solution, where religions produce wars and animosities and hatred and division between people. If we could go back to pre-religion days, when God came down to Mount Sinai and said, let me tell you what I need from you. I created the world. I put you in this world. I need something from you. I need you to live a certain way in order that the world become a heavenly place, a godly place. Now, that's not a religion. Religion means when I do what I do because I want to gain some spiritual benefit. And then I figure out how I'm going to gain that spiritual benefit. And if I figure out a different way of doing it from you, then all of a sudden we've got problems. If we could go back to simply doing what God intended for us to do, God says when he comes down to Mount Sinai, and again, this revelation is holy and sacred to all religions.
Do Muslims too?
Yes.
Okay.
Sure.
I didn't know that. I mean, I am really in uncharted waters, so I am expecting you or some expert, as far as my listening audience, to tell me when you're right or wrong.
Okay.
So the commandments belong to all of us.
Okay, so when God came down to Mount Sinai, he didn't start a religion. He simply expressed himself. He said, I created the world for a reason. Let me tell you my reasons. Let me tell you what my needs are. My needs are that all people, all over the world, live by 7 commandments. Not to worship
idols. Why do I
idols.
have 10 commandments if there were only 7?
All right, let's get to the 7, then we'll go into the 10. The 7 commandments are not to worship idols.
Okay, false
not
idols.
Not to be blasphemous.
Okay, I've got that one.
Not to murder.
I've got that one.
Not to steal.
Not to steal.
Not to commit adultery.
Mm-hmm.
Not to be cruel to animals.
That's in there?
Yeah.
How is that one? What one is that?
That's one of the 7. And then the 7th is to establish courts of law that will teach and enforce the other 6. Now, these commandments were actually given to Adam and Eve, and then repeated again to Noah.
Where's
after
honor
the
your
flood.
mother and thy father?
That's in the Ten Commandments.
Okay.
Okay.
So those came later.
So these laws are universal and were repeated again at Sinai when God came down with the revelation that these are the things he expects of all people. If any person, anywhere in the world, abides by these 7 commandments because
go
God
right to
asks him
heaven.
for it, he is a righteous person.
Good. I like that. Ron, you're on the air. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Rabbi.
Morning.
I was driving in my car and just picked up your program here, and I don't know if you can tell by my voice, but I've been concerned about this thing all along, and maybe it's good to hear from someone who I haven't read the Bible a lot, but I've always tried to live as a good person. Are you saying, Rabbi, that this is it for the world? That this is the end?
No, I'm saying that this is the beginning. I'm saying that, to borrow a phrase, a new world order is in fact coming about. And it's much greater than anything Bush can imagine.
Is it at the end of the world as we know it?
Right. It is the end of the world as we know it, a world of problems, a world of war, of animosity, of jealousy, of competition. All that is coming to an end because there really is no need for any of it. There's no need for competition. There's no need for animosity. There's no need for wars. We have everything we need. All we have to do is share it.
It certainly sounds pretty glorious, Rabbi, and we are going to be able to talk about this, your book, and lots of other things in the second hour of the Barbara Carlson and Friends show.
This concludes the first side of this cassette. Please turn the cassette over and begin again on side 2.
And he codified all the 613 laws in a very organized, systematic way so that everybody could study it. And he writes concerning the mitzvah or the commandment of believing in the coming of Mashiach, that we believe as follows, that there will be a Jewish leader who will be a descendant of King David, who will be a great scholar, a very wise man, who will inspire Jews to greater observance and to more mitzvot, who will rebuild the temple and regather Jews into Israel. And when that happens, then we will know that he is Mashiach. It's not like somebody's going to come along and say, please believe me, I am the Messiah.
We're just going to know.
We're going to insist.
So Christians are going to know, too.
Everybody will.
I mean, we will all know that this
And we will insist that he is the Messiah because only a Messiah could accomplish the things that he's going to accomplish. So there won't be any doubt and there won't be any campaigning where some people will say, I believe him, I don't believe him. It won't be that way.
Who named Rabbi Schneerson the head Rebbe?
Well, a Rebbe is chosen by Hasidim, by the followers, through petition. He is petitioned. And Hasidim get together and they sign a petition saying, we want you to be our leader, we want you to take this position, and we will be loyal, and we will...
How long has Rabbi Schneerson been the Rebbe?
40 years.
Oh, so it's a long time. He is...
Yeah, we've gotten to know him pretty well.
Yes, he's been around a long, long time. John, good morning.
Good morning. I had a question for the rabbi.
Yes.
And the question is, does not the fact that there's a war going on right now between the sons of Ishmael and the sons of Isaac show that goes back to Abraham? Between the two sons, one was born of faith and the other was born of the flesh?
Well, there are so many biblical connections here. These are the same players in the same arena. It's almost like just history repeating itself. That Iraq is Babylon, the ancient Babylon, and that those are the people who destroyed the temple, who will now in some way contribute to the rebuilding of the temple, indirectly possibly, not necessarily intentionally, but they will, and that the place, the struggle is over Jerusalem, the same city that the struggle has always been over, or around and about. So yes, there are a lot of biblical connections here. In fact, some people say that Iraq used to be Uruk, and that the original name of the place was Ur of Chaldees, where Abraham was born, and where God came to him and said, leave this place and come to the land that I will show you, and he took him to Israel. So there's a strange mystical connection between these two places, and I guess in the final drama, all of this has to be resolved in a very positive and happy way.
Okay. Also, if I could ask one more question.
Yes, John.
Concerning in the book of Daniel, it talks about 70 Shavuos being determined for Israel. Have 69 of those now been fulfilled?
I don't know what that is.
Oh, the 70 weeks, 77-year time periods where God was going to deal with Israel?
Yeah, I really don't know. These prophecies were purposely, intentionally, and for obvious reasons vague and clouded and mysterious. So I really don't know.
They allow for interpretation.
That's right.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks, John, very much. So I mean, people do interpret the Torah, don't they? I mean, isn't that what great scholars do?
Well,
to understand and tell?
Obviously, there are parts of Torah that don't need explanation. You know, "Thou shalt not kill" is a pretty clear, straightforward statement. But the prophecies concerning the coming of Mashiach were intentionally vague.
Now, how soon is this going to happen? I mean, if Jews have been waiting for 2,000 years, that's a long time, Rabbi. I mean, could it be another 100 years, or is this going to be over? I mean, this war looks like it's going to be over fairly quickly.
Well, hopefully, but hopefully it'll resolve more than just a military conflict. Hopefully it'll resolve a bigger question.
I mean, are you looking at a Messiah within the next 12 months?
Yes.
You were saying right here on the air,
right,
on the Barbara Carlson and Friends show, that we are going to have a Messiah within 12 months?
Right. And it's not going to be a mystical event. You're going to read about it in the papers.
So we're
going to
know.
see it on television.
Okay. But you don't know who it's going to be, though, yet?
No.
Is he in Israel now, do you think?
I don't know.
You don't know. You have absolutely no idea. But you just know what's going to happen. Brian, you're on the air.
Yeah, I was wondering, you were talking about the 7 commandments earlier, and why would God have given them to Adam and Eve if they didn't know the difference between right and wrong or good and evil?
Thanks, Brian.
Well, the state of not knowing the difference between right and wrong, good and evil, didn't last very long. It only lasted a few hours.
After the apple they knew?
Right.
Okay, we're going to have to
actually, 6 commandments were given to Adam and Eve. The one about not being cruel to animals was added after the flood, and it was given to Noah. And that's why they're called the 7 Noahide laws.
Wow, I am just learning a great deal today, and if the rabbi is wrong, ladies and gentlemen, just get me somebody out there, a Lutheran, that could tell me if they don't exactly agree with Rabbi Friedman. But Rabbi Friedman and I will return after these messages.
The forecast for the Twin Cities calls for partly sunny this afternoon, a high of 10 above. Increasing cloudiness tonight, though, with flurries possible after midnight.
Get involved in this war. I can't. It was almost as though I couldn't believe that they were not retaliating.
I guess they don't feel like Patton.
They don't. Good. Well, it's.
But I think.
But it's never happened before.
Part of the miracle. Well, it's always been necessary before to retaliate. But part of the miracle now is that Bush is actually begging Israel to let America do the work. Israel has always had to defend itself and was always alone. Now all of a sudden, Bush considers it a privilege to defend Israel. So,
Greg, hello.
Hi, Rabbi.
Hello.
Say, I was wondering, our minister says that Saddam Hussein is rebuilding the Tower of Babel. And I was wondering if you think it's in God's plan that this war has come to destroy that.
Well, I don't know if he's building the Tower of Babel, but he's certainly creating a lot of Babel. Babylonian, I think the word Babel comes from Babylonian, is the confusion in the world. And basically what Hussein is doing is creating a confusion, a devastating confusion in the world. And in this, he is being successful. Not in his military attempts, but in the confusion.
Well, he certainly is exciting a lot of people in all the Arab countries. I mean, that, he's asking for that holy war, and he's asking them to get involved. And in a lot of countries that are not part of this war, the general population seems to be getting up in that tremendous frenzy.
Yeah, I think he does want to turn it into a holy war, into a Muslim war. And I guess that question itself, is there such a thing as holy war? Is this really the will of God? Is there such a commandment? This has to be resolved if there's going to really be peace in the world.
Is Hussein's God the same God that you and I have, Rabbi?
Obviously not.
I always thought we had the same God, though.
Well, there is only one God. The question is, do you believe in him, or do you believe in some concoction of your own?
Well, do you believe in God, or do you believe in Hussein's interpretation of God? Right. I mean, I believe it's the same God, that just Hussein is not in touch with reality. Ken, you're on the air. Hello.
Hi. I think this is great to have this dialogue. I personally am a Lutheran. I attend a church in downtown Minneapolis, and we are making efforts to communicate and have relations with other faiths and other religions. We exchanged, our pastor went to a Catholic parish on Sunday, and then the priest at the Catholic parish spoke at our church.
Are you at Central Lutheran?
Augustana.
Augustana, okay.
And I know our pastor's also friends with many people in the Jewish community. And even though there may be symbolic things or whatever differences, I think it's great when we agree upon, it's not right to worship idols. It's not right to bear false witness. It's not right to murder, certainly. It's not right to steal, certainly. And it's not right to commit adultery, yes. And to communicate and to establish a society on these principles, I do pray that can indeed bring about peace.
Thank you very much for that interpretation. And Rabbi, I'm going to ask you, do you think that this ecumenical movement that has been going on for a number of years is part of what is occurring in prophecy? I mean, that Catholics and Jews and Lutherans and Congregationalists, I mean, Baptists, they all seem to be coming together. I don't know whether that ties into the Muslims, though.
Well,
maybe you can tell me.
Hopefully it'll involve the whole world. And what we're going back to is not some kind, going back rather than creating some kind of an artificial camaraderie or shared faiths, and we take a little of this and a little of that. If we go back to the original statement, before we got confused, you see, before there was the babble, before we got confused.
When did we get confused?
I guess with each religion developing along its own line, it created another confusion. I'm right, you're wrong. No, you're wrong, I'm right, and so on. That kind of thing that created, so who is telling me the truth? I mean, an innocent kid today says, I want to know the truth. How are you going to find out? And particularly when people, in an attempt to be liberal and tolerant, say, well, the truth is whatever you think it is. Well, what kind of truth is that?
We're going to have to take a break on that. We are going to go to ABC News. Are we going to have a little in the next minute so I don't have to worry about this? I'll ask another question. Okay, well, wrong, so let's go to another caller. Carrie, good morning.
Good morning. This may seem like kind of a dumb question, but...
Nothing's dumb on this show.
I watched Raiders of the Lost Ark last night, and they talk about the Ark of the Covenant. And I'm wondering, from the rabbi's perspective, if he's seen that program, how accurate the information was that was portrayed in that about the Ark being stolen and covered up in sand and all that, or was that just largely Hollywood?
Well, it's a mixture. I haven't seen the movie.
Oh, it's fun, Rabbi. You've got to see it.
But there is a tradition that when the temple was destroyed...
Are we going to have to close now? Okay, we're going to go to ABC, and so we can talk about the Ark when we return. Thanks very much. House, an expert in family and marriage counseling, part of the Orthodox part of Judaism, and I want to say you have been extremely helpful in explaining a lot of things to me, and you're not as radical as I thought you were going to be, Rabbi. So
I'll try harder.
You'll try. I want to tell you that I'm enjoying this a great deal. Our number is 646-TALK. That is 646-8255. And if you are outstate, you may call 1-800-962-0792. You may ask questions of the rabbi. If you have any comments about what is happening in the Middle East, please feel free to make those comments also. Alan, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you. First question is, when I just tuned in, I heard you talking about the biblical story of creation. I wonder if you could comment on how you view creationism versus the scientific evidence of evolution, and if you believe both, how you reconcile both, and whether or not creationism should be taught in public schools. And then secondly, one of the kind of the underlying currents of the whole Middle East controversy is the issue of whether or not Zionism is racism, the UN resolution of a few years ago. And I wonder if you would also tell me why Zionism is not racism.
Thanks, Alan.
Well, those are
I don't remember talking about. We touched a little bit on Adam and Eve, but I didn't think we were getting into creationism. But go ahead. He's asked you a couple of difficult questions.
Yeah, and they're very big subjects, which we need more time to develop and talk about and explain. But I want to make one comment about creation, which maybe people don't realize. The creation of the world, according to the Torah, according to the Bible, is that God created the world out of nothing, which very simply means that the natural state of affairs is that the world does not exist. Non-existence is natural. Existence is not. So if God created the world out of nothing, something out of nothing, it means that essentially the nature of things remains nothing. So that the creation is not something that took place thousands of years ago. It's something that is taking place constantly, because creation is an ongoing process.
Because creation is life, and
because existence is not natural. So God has to keep creating and make the world exist all the time.
I know that these are big issues, Rabbi, and you don't want to discuss them, but the fact is, can you teach creationism in school and evolution, as well as having different interpretations by various religions?
I don't see why not.
Okay, so you're saying that there's no conflict. And do you think that Zionism is racist?
Well, what does racism mean? Racism means that...
To me, it means attacking someone else's beliefs.
Well, it means
and subscribing certain beliefs to certain races.
Well, it means, racism literally means that you consider certain people inferior simply because of the race that they belong to. That some races are not as human as others, or not as valuable, or not as justified as others. Obviously, Zionism doesn't believe that.
But aren't you chosen?
Well, chosen doesn't mean you're more human. Chosen doesn't mean anyone is less human. And in addition to the fact that anyone can become a Jew, so obviously it has nothing to do with race.
Okay, let's go back to the Ark. Tell me about the Ark.
Oh, the Ark. It's interesting that all the vessels and the furniture, so to speak, of the temple is pretty much accounted for. The Romans have certain carried off the candelabra and other things, but no one ever claimed to have carried off the Ark. Of the people who destroyed and plundered Jerusalem, no one ever claimed... Yes, and that's where the tradition is, that it is hidden somewhere, and that God is protecting it and doesn't allow it to be taken into captivity.
So it's still out there?
Because the Ark contains the original 10 Commandments, the stone on which the 10 Commandments are written. And that can't be taken into captivity.
Will the Messiah get it?
Right.
Oh, so
when the temple is rebuilt, the Ark will be found.
Okay. Loretta.
I'm praying for the peace.
Okay, I'm sorry, Loretta?
Good morning, Barbara.
Good morning.
I would like to ask the rabbi if he would be able to tell me where the Garden of Eden was.
Okay. Where was the Garden of Eden?
I don't know.
You don't have any idea?
No idea.
Wasn't in Israel,
No.
So you don't know. Are we going to get the garden back?
Well, the whole idea is that when God first created the world, there was a place that was the Garden of Eden, and the rest of the world was not. But now, 5,751 years later, having struggled to make the world a better place and a more godly place, we want the whole world to be a Garden of Eden.
Chuck, you're on the air.
Yes, Barbara. I appreciate your show very much.
Thank you.
For the rabbi, I've been to Israel myself. I am not a Jew, but I sympathize very much with the people there. And I just wonder why all these discussions they have, no one ever tells about what's happened in the past, the recent past. The Jewish people did give background that was captured during a war. They would be fools to give back the Golan Heights, the West Bank, because of the strategic part of it. And they only took that ground after they were attacked.
So we're getting into the Palestinian issue now. That's what you're discussing, how we're going to solve that Palestinian issue, and whether they're going to get the Golan Heights and the West Bank and a lot of Israelis.
And they're comparing it with Hussein taking Kuwait.
Okay.
And there's no comparison, really.
Okay. Well, Chuck doesn't believe in... I would imagine that you don't believe there's any comparison to, Rabbi.
None whatsoever.
Okay. Do you think that any type of discussion to bring Palestinians into some type of resolution will have the Golan Heights or the West Bank given to them?
I don't think so.
Chuck, thank you very much for that point of view. And a lot of people say, though, Rabbi, I mean, if you look in history, Iraqi history did have part of Kuwait at one time. And really, what is the difference from going in and taking what historically once was yours? How can you not compare the two?
Well, Israel didn't go in and take it. That's a big difference.
So Chuck is saying that the attack came from the other side first and they won it.
Right.
Okay. Let me see. What is that? Can you see, Rabbi? With all those children, Brad is his name. Brad on line 5. Hello.
Hello, Rabbi. I just had a question regarding your statement on creation. If the process of creation is still continuing and God is still creating, when will he rest? It said on the seventh day God rested.
Well, I don't know if God gets tired and needs a rest, but he creates differently on the Sabbath, on the day of rest, than he does during the rest of the week. And I guess the ultimate rest will come when Mashiach is here, and the world is a godly place, and God and his world become one. That's the real rest. But until then, there's work to be done.
Thanks, Brad. Now, a lot of people have prophesied certain things happening on certain dates, and you're saying that the Messiah is going to come within the next 12 months. That's right. Well, what's going to happen to you if he doesn't? I mean, are you just going to say I made a mistake?
I'll be very angry.
You'll be angry. Yeah. And anger is a human feeling, and you'll say, son of a gun, I was wrong?
Well, he's wrong. Where is he?
Where is he? Why didn't he show up? Okay, right. Florence, you're on the air.
Thank you. I was going to ask the rabbi 2 questions. One was, does the rabbi feel that adultery in his religion or other religions means a Muslim is an adulterer? And the other question was, in a Christian...
I didn't understand that, Florence.
You mean idolater?
Right.
Okay.
Do you feel that a Muslim is an adulteress?
Idolater.
Is that what you mean by adultery?
No, I think that there's a difference between an idolater and adultery.
No, I didn't say idolater. I said adultery.
Okay.
And because he mentioned that was one of the 7...
Not to commit adultery.
Yeah, if he thought that was one. And...
I don't understand how adultery gets into the Muslims.
Well, they have double marriages.
Oh.
Okay, that was one question. The other one was, in a Christian religion, and I don't know if a Jewish religion, you hear, according to biblical teachings, love your enemy and do good unto them. Turn your head if they do something wrong and just try to do good. And I was just wondering if...
You'd like the rabbi to respond?
Right.
Okay, thanks, Florence.
Okay.
Multiple wives.
Multiple wives is not adultery. It's polygamy.
Mm-hmm.
And Jewish law prohibits polygamy, but the Bible does not. So we can't condemn people who believe in polygamy. We can't call that immoral or wrong. Adultery is a different thing. And concerning her second question.
Can you remember her second question?
What was the second question?
I can't remember her second question either. I'm sorry.
Just one blank.
Yes, I'm sorry, Florence. And love your enemy. I'm sorry. Thank you, Peter. Love your enemy. Turn the other cheek. What and where does that come into this discussion?
Well, if your enemy is not dangerous,
it's okay.
Then it's okay. But if you're talking about self-defense, turning the other cheek is not a good idea.
And if your enemy wants to push you into the ocean and ensure your demise, then it's right.
Then you're not allowed to permit it.
It's right to be concerned. We have another Florence. Good morning.
Good morning. I've been listening with great interest to your interviews with the rabbi, and I am a Christian. We believe in the coming of the same Messiah that the rabbi is looking for. But also, I believe that on the scene will come an impersonator of the Messiah.
Okay, so you believe there's going to be an impersonator first?
Before he comes, before the real Messiah comes, and that he will do great exploits on the earth and impersonate the Messiah.
Okay.
We believe it's an antichrist.
Okay, do you have a question, Florence?
I would like to know how the... rabbi looks at these points in prophecy that are believed in by Christians.
Okay, fine. We'll ask him. Thanks, Florence, very much. Is in Judaism an antichrist?
Not a particular individual. Every leader, every great leader in his own mind has always considered himself to be a messiah. So false messiahs, imposters, we've had plenty. Communism offered itself as a messiah. Socialism offered itself as a messiah. Democracy
and I would
offers
say
itself.
Hussein is probably offering
And Hussein
himself.
probably thinks he's a messiah, right?
He's a messiah too. And
there's no
so
shortage. There's no shortage of false
We've got
messiahs.
plenty of them out there to go around for everyone. Paul, you're on the air.
Hi, fascinating. First of all, I want to say I got a copy of your book. I was fortunate I finally found a copy, and it's a fascinating and wonderful book, and I encourage everybody to go out and read it.
Oh, thank you. You're very kind.
Library or other. A question. I have two questions. The first one is there a difference between the purpose of a Jewish person's existence?
Or an earthquake.
Earthquake, okay.
You could have an earthquake. I mean, there could be other ways of destroying it. What's the question, Paul?
What's
the second question?
Different purpose in life.
That was the first question.
And the second one is, what about one of Hussein's bombs falling on it?
Okay, is that possible? Okay.
Okay, the purpose for life is the same for all things. We are all created to serve our Creator. And that means to bring about the fulfillment of some plan, some vast eternal plan, as Tevye says, that God had in mind when he first created the world. So we are all here to serve him. And we serve him the way he asks to be served. So he asks the Jew to serve him through 613 commandments, and to be a nation of priests and a light to the nations and so on. And the whole world serves God and helps fulfill his plan by keeping the 7 commandments, which all people share in common. So ultimately, the purpose is all the same. We are here to make this world a godly place. And that's what God intended when he created it.
You have 14 children, Rabbi. Do all of your children, of course, it's very hard when you have an 8-month-old baby, but do your children that can make decisions all believe the way you do, or do you have a defiant one or two in the batch?
Well, I hope to have some defiant ones who will say that I am not devoted enough, and that I don't do enough, and I don't study enough, and they'll outdo me.
But you don't have anyone that says adios. I mean, I have, in my limited years, I have known some children of ministers who did not necessarily believe as their father did and became fairly outrageous in life, but that's not going to happen to you?
I hope not.
Okay.
The second question.
Yes,
we
can't forget a second question.
Is it possible that a rocket will land in Jerusalem and destroy the mosque? I don't know.
Okay.
Everything is possible. But I would like to think that this thing will be resolved ideologically as well, and that the Muslim world will find it within their own belief and with their own thinking that the best thing to do for the entire world is to help Jews rebuild their temple.
I think that's going to be the real miracle. Mike, I put you on the air. Are you still there? Hello. I guess I lost Mike somewhere. We're going to have to take a brief break, Rabbi. Rabbi Friedman and Barbara Carlson will return. Mike, good morning.
Yes, very interesting to hear the rabbi's perspective today. I thought it was a real treat to hear him today. One comment I do have, you people have been talking a lot about prophecies and things, and I just have a book that I'd like to recommend that I just got done reading. It's called Armageddon, An Appointment with Destiny by Grant Jeffries, I believe, and it talks a lot about the Ark of the Covenant, which you guys have mentioned, and the Dome of the Rock, and how that fits into the...
How does he say it's going to come down?
Basically, he's been researching things for 25 years and has come to the conclusion, reading old Jewish manuscripts and everything, that Armageddon is going to happen in the year 2000, and a lot of people all the way since like the early centuries have believed that the earth was basically set up to last until the year 2000, and then the Messiah was going to come. And that kind of brings me to my question of how does the rabbi come about with his figure of the next 12 months? Is it just kind of a gut feeling, or is he relying on some prophecy that he's read?
Well, we'll find out, Mike.
All right.
Thanks for the question.
The belief in the coming of Mashiach is an imminent one. We don't have any predictions as to when he's coming. We believe every day that today is the day because he's long overdue, and there's no reason why he shouldn't be here today. We just picked 12 months just as a round figure, I guess.
Because a lot of things have been going on that have been leading up to it. I mean, it would be relatively easy to believe it if you're watching that Middle East. And I think what is very interesting is the different groups that are working together, which historically have not. I mean, you look at Syria that went in and killed Marines, 3 or 4 years ago? I can't remember the exact time, and now have troops in Saudi Arabia to fight Iraq. And there's certainly very, very interesting coalitions. And I must say that I'm delighted looking at Israel and the United States now. I think that there has certainly been for many years a tacit support, and there have been financial supports, but I haven't seen them work towards the same goal before.
And people were saying that Shamir and Bush don't get along and they can't talk to each other.
Well, they haven't. Historically, Bush was a little ticked off.
Yeah, but all of a sudden they're getting along very well. We have to recognize that Israel has always been the land of miracles. And in the last year, the miracles have become more obvious and more blatant. And this year, the miracles will be even greater. The miracle of last year, of course, is the influx of Russian Jews.
How many have come in?
100,000.
How is Israel... Quick question. How is Israel going to absorb in that little tiny country that many more people, and is the economy going to be able to financially support them?
Well, that's going to be the next miracle.
That's the next miracle. Okay, you're just filled with them today. Stan, you're on the air.
If you need help, hang up.
I'm sorry. Information. Hi, you're on the air, and is it Alfonso?
Yes, it is. Hi, Rabbi.
Hello.
Say, from a Christian perspective, and I agree with quite a bit of things you've been saying on the air, I was wondering, can you shed some light on the race perspective in terms of Noah, his 3 sons, and how they populated the rest of the earth in terms of a race? You know what I'm talking about?
I don't know what you're talking about.
In other words, Noah had 3 sons, correct, after the flood, and I was wondering, it said in the Old Testament, and maybe you can bear this out, that...
Are we all descendants from Noah?
Yeah.
That's what I'm getting at. And the 3 sons, exactly, they talk about Ham being the father of the black race and Shem being the father of the Hebrew race, correct?
Semites.
Okay, Semites. Can you shed some light on that in terms of how that, in terms of Iraq and, the people of that particular area of the country and maybe the rest of the world, if you don't mind?
Well, the problem is that things used to be simple back in the good old days. But
when is the good old days? That's 2,000 years ago?
More.
Okay.
About 2,000 years ago, when the temple was destroyed, there were wars that confused the entire world's population, and we can no longer say with any certainty who belongs to which son of Noah. So we can't trace it back anymore. When we say that the Arabs are the descendants of Ishmael, well, we're really not so sure. Generally speaking, that's probably true. But
well, why aren't you sure?
Because of all the intermarriage and the changes of populations because of wars and so on, that we can't really trace it back.
So we're all kind of intermarried and mingled.
And again, that's the miracle of the survival of the Jewish people, because to still be able to trace yourself back to Aaron and to Moses and to King David and so on.
Are you the only ones that can do that?
I don't know if we're the only ones, but certainly the Jews have had all sorts of reasons to become confused and to be assimilated and to be destroyed, and yet we haven't not only haven't we been destroyed, we haven't lost our lineage. We haven't lost touch.
I don't need to ask you about intermarriage. John, good morning. You're on the air.
Yes, I had a question for the rabbi.
Yes.
My question is there's different people that are living in the occupied territories, according to the Palestinians anyway, that the Israels are in at this time, from different countries around the Mideast. Like there's some people from Iraq that live there, some people from Syria, and so on and so forth. How can so many people from so many different countries in that area lay claim to a certain part of land that originally, or at least apparently, they came from and went to? How can they say that it's theirs when a lot of these people came from other parts of the region to live there?
Thanks. John?
I'm not sure what that question was. How did Jews lay claim to the land of Israel if they come from different countries?
Well, yeah, I think that's the question. That the Palestinians, they say it was their country and that Israel was created out of their country. Isn't that what history tells you, that it was created? Of course, you claim Jerusalem, the Muslims claim Jerusalem, and the Christians claim Jerusalem. Now, my question to you, Rabbi, is who is right, or does Jerusalem truly belong to all of us?
Well, Jerusalem belongs to the Jewish people. And I think that the result of all this babble created by this war will eventually clarify
much
that, and
before
everybody.
this war, Rabbi, you will have Christians that say that that is not true.
Yes, yes. But I think that the result of all of this Persian Gulf crisis will be the resolution of that question, so that the whole world will finally agree.
Now, what if you're wrong, and what if the Christians are right? You'll be surprised.
What if?
The world is filled
What if?
with what ifs. We'll take one quick question. Stan?
Yes, good morning,
You
Rabbi.
just have a
Good
couple
morning,
seconds.
Yes, I'm referring back to the in Genesis first few chapters under the Abrahamic covenant. The land was given to the Israelis and to the Jewish people as an eternal possession. Now, since their restoration in 1948, they've expanded their borders in each one of the subsequent wars, establishing the southern and eastern borders. Rabbi, what do you feel will be the result of the war that is currently broken out?
Thank you.
Well, I think again, the positive ultimate benefit to the world is not going to be a military one or a political one, but an ideological one. And if this brings us to a unified...
Do you believe, though, that those borders can change? Okay, Rabbi, we're going to a special report in 20 seconds. I want to thank you very much. It has been very enlightening, and we'll see you again, and I think you're one fabulous fellow.
If you enjoyed this conversation or this topic, and you're looking for more information, or you want to hear it again from another angle, there's a way to do that, and that is in this book. It's all there. Order it from Amazon. You can read it, reread it, and share it. I want to invite you to join us as VIPs, partners in our work, and join us also for a personal chat with other members of the VIP club. We talk about many things. There's an opportunity to ask, to respond, to make a comment, to meet the other supporters. And together we can really make a difference in Jewish life and in life in general. So join us. It's goodtoknow.org. Log in, call, make contact, and join us with the VIPs.